Well, we are going to go over our case studies for some weed control techniques. We work throughout the Bay Area, so we have a lot of variety in properties that we maintain, and are pushing very heavily to have all of our managers certified in rescape and bay-friendly techniques. We're pretty close to 100% at this point, so we'll just keep going, and hopefully we'll have everyone certified. So a lot of different techniques we use. Is this out of the way there? From mechanical, chemical, sustainable alternatives, our typical crews with harnesses on slopes, green roofs, weed eaters with our 2 cycles of engines, hand pulling, just all the labor mechanical methods, which entail resulting debris that has to be hauled, either taken to landfill or recycling, crew endangerment, and noise and air pollution, applications of chemicals, which we'll talk about later, and then alternatives that we have been using for large-scale weed control using goats and sheep. It's been really popular with our clients. People love to see the livestock in urban settings. I put no pollution, but really we have to consider the travel of the goats, have to get to the site and from the site. Our shepherds on large sites will use ATVs to get around. So it's not without its pollution, but it is greatly reduced from 2 cycle engines on a hillside. And we get natural fertilizer. And I will discuss a little bit weed seeds dropped in the feces as well. I'll go over sheet mulching a bit later, which we use for weed eradication and suppression, and our use of arbor mulch as well. So we maintain a large biotech campus in South San Francisco. There's about 20 acres of area that needs to be weed abated for fire control. And the first 2 years that we did the weed abatements here, we used crews with line trimmers, handwork. They had to be harnessed. We did daily risk assessments on the site. A lot of pieces, moving pieces to consider. It is noisy. We were restricted in the hours that we could work because of the noise, and we had to haul all of our debris off of the site. So we did this type of weed abatement 2018 and 2017. In 2018, we removed 175 cubic yards of green waste. We were averaging about $8,000 an acre for those operations. In 2018, because we had done some work before, we reduced that to about 100 cubic yards of green waste. You can see the difficulty of harnessing our crews and making sure that they have access to all of the areas they need to get to. This was between 6 and 8 weeks of operations for these 2. So we introduced goats to the community. In 2019, we had our first goat weed abatement. Sadly, they arrived late in July, and you can see the grass has already browned out. The anise stalks are tall and woody. The goats don't really eat that much of the stalks. They'll chew on them, but we're left with sort of a sea of stalks that we then went in after the fact and removed where the client wanted them removed. We did reduce the cost by about 75%. We reduced our green waste to 0. We took no green waste off of the site in 2019 and 2020 during those operations. We did have crews that would use line trimmers around the edges to make way for fencing and such. This picture shows a little cat colony where we had to fence the goats out of. Any debris that we created, we tossed into the goat grazing area and they ate it and composted it for us. How nice of them. So the cost savings for the client was significant, and the reduction of green waste was also a big plus. We have found that they control the pampas grass quite well. Our goal is to get them in before the pampas sets seed. This picture shows the pampas grass just greening out, so that is the ideal time. The goats will graze that down, and after several years of grazing, the pampas will not return. This has been our experience so far. I would say that overall on this campus, our pampas is at a 30 to 50% of the population that it was in 2017 when we started these operations. This is a picture of 2020, April 2020, after several years of weed control. You can see some of the pampas starting to sprout out again. This is ideal to pull the goats in within 4 to 6 weeks of this condition. That's the ideal time to have them in there. Once we pull them in later, we have brown grasses, not very appetizing if you're a goat. The anise has already stalked up. Just creates a lot less for them to eat. Speeds up the operations, but I think it's less effective. This is the goats will also graze the shrubs, so they're somewhat indiscriminate what they'll eat. But on a weed abatement situation, this is exactly what we were looking for. This is the end of the operation. It took them 21 days to travel through 20 acres of slope. This is after our operations last year, and this shows the result of grazing late in the season. The ground looks bare, it looks overgrazed. All of this recovered, as you saw in the previous picture in April. It does recover, but public perception is that we've overgrazed the area and they're concerned about erosion. We did overseed areas that were perceived as bare with native grasses and wildflowers, trying to return the whole area back to a more native palette. So we also use goats in smaller areas. The previous operation is done by a company called Living Systems. They have large herds. We've had 640 goats in the last herd that we had on the biotech campus. So large herds. These are much smaller herds by a local company called City Grazing. And we use their services on smaller areas. You can see just a peek of it through the neighborhood with the goats on the hillside. The neighbors love this. People would make special trips to come and show the goats. It's really quite a cool thing. This will be our third year on this site using the goats. We've gotten good control on the pampas grass. We haven't had to harness up our crews to go down that hillside. So it's just been an excellent method of control. This is a fall winter grazing at the same site. You can see it's much lusher. The goats have more to eat. They're more interested. They're not looking over the fence to find someplace else to graze. This is our best time of year, and actually we have this very site scheduled. Within the next few weeks, they'll be moving out to this site. Currently, or possibly next week, they'll be at Recology doing a couple of small areas there. But timing is really, really important and difficult with a larger client. So getting them signed up early is really important. We've used goats at St. Ignatius Sports Field. They didn't want any chemicals on the property. In addition, they have events. They have practices and such at the field. So the goats were an excellent alternative. And their primary issue was pampas grass. And again, we've had really good luck with controlling the pampas grass. They've done several years on the site, and we have it pretty well controlled. Easy to come in after the fact and put the guys with their line trimmers, clean it up, tidy it up. So a little bit about goats versus sheep. We have heard from potential clients that we had goats before and they just didn't work. Possibly it was the wrong technology being used. Goats are foragers and they will eat just about anything they can get their teeth on. They'll climb trees, they'll eat shrubs, they'll eat cans and boxes, that you name it, they'll try it. They're pretty spry and they can get into small spaces. They're just like mowing machines. They're going to go for whatever they can reach. Sheep, on the other hand, are grazers. They want to keep their face close to the ground. They'll eat grass, weeds, low herbs. They're not interested in woody material. They don't want to climb up on things. Sheep are really excellent for areas such as solar fields, where you want to just mow the grass underneath. You want to keep everything at a nice short level, but you want to maintain the green. Solar fields actually will produce more solar power with a green base rather than a rock base. They need that cooling air around the solar panels to produce better electricity. So if we can move more sheep into our solar fields, it'll be an excellent way to go. Otherwise, solar fields often are given just the Roundup treatment. Scorched Earth. These are more sheep on a slope that is primarily grasses. excellent application for these guys. They won't damage the trees, they won't damage the taller shrubs, and they just mow it down quietly and pastorally. So again, we'll stress the difference between goats and sheep. We have had goats applied to just a 2,000 square foot field, and that is not appropriate. They are not gonna give the end product that we're looking for. But the sheep, excellent. There is some concern that I want to address too. I've heard concerns about spreading invasive weeds through the feces of goats or sheep. I can't find a lot of statistics or data on this. What I'm finding are mostly studies done on bovine grazing. There's just going to have to be some studies to see if that is a concern. Farmers will say it's not a concern. Environmentalists will often say it is a concern. So got to weigh the options there. We haven't had those concerns in the areas that we've been applying this technology to. So I just caution you that this could be an issue in some areas. I believe that this is an issue in South City here on San Bruno Mountain, and they're concerned about spreading or introducing even invasives through grazing. This is a pretty dramatic picture of an area that was sheep grazed. This was done by Living Systems. And the fire broke out. It burned pretty heartily right down to the grazing line and stopped. Saved the HOA from complete burnout. In case there was any question whether this actually works. So I'm going to move on to another technique that we use, sheet mulching. So sheet mulching is a technique that we use when we want to eradicate an area of weeds. There's very little selectivity unless you're cutting holes in your sheet mulch, and I don't advise that. So this was an empty lot full of weeds, and we wanted to create what we call the Gachina farm. I sheet mulched this, double layer sheet mulch. You mow it down, sheet mulch it. Anyone who's been through the Rescape training is very familiar with sheet mulching. Recycled content, cardboard, unrolled to smother the weeds. We then bring in the planting material and mulch, cover the sheet mulch with compost, and then mulch. And we grew our garden. We did very little weeding after we did this process. We have been building the soil. Christina is in charge of maintaining this farm. And we work with Job Train in Menlo Park with their culinary program, teaching farm to table. Super easy way to reclaim a large area and keep the weeds down. We just do very little weeding, even now. And that was done, I believe, 2016, 2015, maybe. This is a more recent produce from the farm. And I wanted to look at this picture as well. All the mulch in these pictures is arbor mulch. So arbor mulch is what's left over from your tree work. And we love this stuff. It is gold. Please don't let it get away from you. We use this all the time, not just in sheet mulching projects, but in any area that requires mulch. If they're short on funds and they don't want to buy the fancy mulch, arbor mulch is a perfectly good way to go. And I don't have any issue with the way it looks. Most of our clients are pleased. First and foremost, mulch, any kind of mulch is going to be your #1 pre-emergent technique for reducing your weed population. So we've also done sheet mulching on campuses and in commercial projects. This was an area that had ground covers and a pretty good weed load as well. Mowed it down and put the sheet mulch on top of all of the old growth and just planted through the sheet mulch. This picture shows the compost on top of the sheet mulch. As long as it goes on, it can go under or on top of sheet mulch, and then mulch on top of this. This particular planting was finished with rock mulch. I have mixed feelings about rock mulch. It looks very tidy. It's easy to keep clean. It does not return any organic matter to your soil. So some wins, some loss. But if it's rock mulch or no mulch, always go with rock mulch. Mulch of any sort is key. We also use sheet mulch in turf elimination and to control the turf returning once the landscape is installed. Turf elimination, of course, is going to reduce your water usage tremendously. This was then put on an inline drip grid, and all low water plants used in the planting. We had no resprouting of the turf as long as your sheet mulch is installed tightly with good overlaps. We generally use a double layer of sheet mulch just to be sure. Just a great process. Okay, mulch mowing. As long as we're talking of mulch mowing is an excellent way to add to your existing mulch or create mulch where there is none. This is done a lot in the fall when we have a heavy leaf drop. We have the crews put it in an area of turf and then run over it with our mowers and then return it to the beds as a mulch layer. This particular project was done just with a couple of 21 mowers. We do it, of course, with our big lasers. A bigger mower can do bigger areas, but the big thing is to chop it up and get it back onto the beds as a mulch layer. If we do hedging operations, removing small amounts of the shrub, we'll also mow that and add that to our mulch mowing operation as well. Okay, I'm moving probably way too fast, but we'll spend a little time on some chemical weed products because I feel that this is probably the heart and soul of what we're all wondering about. So we avoid at Gachina using any materials above the caution signal word. We try to use OMRI certified. That's not always available to us. And the reason that we try to stay with a caution as opposed to warning is the amount of PPE required for our employees. This carries over to our client perception and public perception. When the crews would suit up in the full PPE, it was alarming to a lot of the public. So these are products that we have used and tested. Christina's department will use a product and conduct tests, and if we decide to use it, we'll then train each of our employees branch by branch. We used Scythe. We had decent efficacy, but because of the amount of PPE needed, we discontinued using this. Very alarming to some of our clientele. We've used Cheetah with some moderate success. Weed Zap, that was our go-to last year. Weed Zap is a burn down, so we don't, we just have to keep applying it, smells nice. It's like having a chai latte in your garden. Avenger, we used Avenger quite a bit. Again, it's a burn down, and because of the constant reapplication, it gets expensive. Fiesta, we're still using this in turf, a selective herbicide, and weed rot we use. This has a warning, so again, more PPE, special handling. We had poor performance, and the manufacturer suggested that we needed to use distilled water in the mixing. This isn't really practical for a large operation. Maybe a homeowner can do that, but for our operations, we just did not find that that was going to work out for us. Our go-to product now is Ecomite Wow, Whack Out Weeds. Ecomite is a systemic, and we are using this, I won't say exclusively, we're using this a lot right now. And it has no signal word, it is exempt. I'll go back to that in a moment. This is some of the weed control testing that our PHC department does. I pulled this series of photos out a year ago, I think was when we did the cheetah testing. And they'll follow up, they'll have the application, they'll follow up 5 days, 12 days, and then 30 and 60 days as well, to determine how effective the application is. What I couldn't find, and I had hoped, was to share with you our training on the use of these products. Christina's PHC team come to each of the branches and conduct detailed training on application techniques for each of these products. With the Ecomite, for instance, agitation is really important. So our crews need to understand that they've got to constantly agitate their tanks while they're applying the product to keep it suspended. And this is the Ecomite. It is a minimum risk product. And this is really driving our use of this product. We've had good control. We do experience systemic control, so not as much return application. Still kind of early days, so in 6 months we'll see. You know, once we get through this major weed load, we'll see if we still feel it is equally as effective. But so far, so good. We're doing a lot of applications and seeing the results pretty quickly. Okay. And oh my goodness, I'm at the last slide, so I'm hoping that people have a lot of questions. This is an area along the Bay Trail, and we have this beautiful little patch of wildflowers return every year. We don't use chemicals, of course. We're right there on the bay. We do mechanical operations in this area. We'll mow this down once a year. And fortunately, we have been able to control the weeds and keep the wildflowers coming back. And this is really the goal for us, is to bring out more natural beauty in these wild areas instead of just treating them as wasteland. So that was, I probably ran through this. I want to make sure that I cover everything I wanted to cover here.
Well, Lauren, hi, this is Christina. You can leave this beautiful slide, which I love. Thank you. But what I would like to add about the different herbicides that we tested, that we're trying to step away from the classical traditional herbicide, mostly glyphosate, but not only glyphosate, because the clients is what they are requesting. This is what Gacino wants to do, and it's the right thing to do. So we start testing probably 4 or 5 years ago, different herbicides. Oh, there you go. So now you can see me. Hello, everyone. So what was available in the market 4 years ago were organic herbicides, which were only by contact, limited efficacy, a lot of work, keep going back, right after every rain. So a lot of work, a lot of labor. So finally, last year in February, March, I came across this product. The manufacturer is Ecomite, and the product name actually is WOW. What it stands for?
Whack out weeds.
Whack out. Yeah, I cannot pronounce it. I'm sorry. Anyway, WOW is fine. And we tested it. We tested it for during the pandemic, since we didn't have much to do at the time. We tested it, and we got really excited because he had the systemic quality that the glyphosate has. We tested in comparison, side by side with Roundup and or glyphosate, within a week we start seeing it that the weeds start wilting and then dying, and then they never came back. So We try in different settings, different weeds. We even try with the stinkworm. I said, well, let's push it. Let's try stinkworm. And we applied on stinkworm when stinkworm was like 5 inches tall, 1 foot tall. And it just took a little longer, but at the end it killed it. So we're really excited about this product. And the fact that we don't have to use all kind, the basic, I mean, even if it doesn't require special PPE, but we still want to keep it, keep our crews aware that they're still always applying, even if it's organic, is an organic product. But it's still, it's basically it's oil based, oil and soap. They still have to protect themselves, so they still have to use the basic PPE, gloves, mask, and goggles. But we don't have to report it to the county. Legally, we don't have to notify the client, even if we do, because we still see in the backpack spraying going around. And this is the latest in the market. So I have more and more clients ask me about it. I have Siri ask me about it, getting more information about it. So I'll invite you all to look into this product because it really works. And you're not applying glyphosate or any other chemical on the ground. And at the end, whatever ends up on the ground, we know ends up on the bay. So I'm really excited about it. That's it.